G'day, Starlo here. Something a little bit different for me today. I'm actually going to have a crack at bait fishing for trout with worms. Now this is something I haven't done for years, but I remember it being a lot of fun. I'm here on the Trout River in southwestern New South Wales, and the river's really dirty from some recent rain. It's not running particularly high because this is a tail race fishery coming out of Blowering Dam, and they don't have a lot of water coming down at the moment, but what water is coming down is quite dirty from the rain that we've had across the previous couple of days. So I figured it might be fun to see if we can catch some on bait. And I'm going to have a crack at float fishing. I love float fishing for just about anything. And years ago I did quite a bit of fishing with mud eyes and quill floats in places like Dartmouth Dam for trout, and I remember it being so much fun. So I'm going to try earthworms under a little quill float on some light spin gear. I've got some worms that I dug out of my compost heap at home. They're not particularly big ones, and I just bought some local worms as well. I'm going to try mine from home first. I think they'll go well on a small hook, and just see if we can catch any trout. This should be interesting. I'm using a fairly small, long-shanked and fine gauge hook. It's about a size 4. Rather than thread a single worm all the way up the hook shank, I prefer to pin my worms at a couple of spots along their body, leaving lots of dangling, wriggling ends hanging off the hook to attract the fish. I also like to use at least a couple of worms per bait, especially when they're small like these little wriggly ones from my own garden. That's the effect I'm looking for, a generous bait with lots of movement to attract attention in the dirty water. Perfect. Okay, let's get the rig into the water. And I'm just going to concentrate on this area here and see if we can find a willing fish. After testing my drag setting to make sure it's not too heavy, I open the bail arm and bounce the rod tip gently to help pay out line to the drifting float. I'm using fine braided main line, but mono's great for this job too. Still pretty quick, the current. Oh, float's gone down. What does that mean? No, I think it hit the bottom. A gentle lob cast is all that's required, and it'll prevent the bait from flying off the hook. The float rig might not be going to work. I might have to go to a sinker. Going to let it go all the way down nearly to that next snag. Sort of imagine that's where a fish might be hanging out. A bit of flood debris caught up in the trees down there. Try just inside this current seam. See if it's running a little bit slower. Not much. Something fascinating about watching the tip of a float in any kind of water, just willing it to disappear. Doesn't matter if you're chasing blackfish or mullet or garfish or trout in the fresh. Now it's gone down. What does that mean? That means I'm snagged. Damn. That wasn't in the script. I think I might have to try something else. Oh. Lost my lovely little float. I think I'm going to have to try a more conventional approach. A sinker. After a quick re-rig, I'm back into it. I've chosen the same size and style of hook as before and loaded it up with worms, but now I'm using a running sinker rig with a bean or egg style sinker running down to a small swivel. I've also added a little plastic bead to stop the sinker from damaging my knot. It's a reasonably heavy sinker because I want to basically anchor my bait. If it bounces along the bottom, I reckon it'll quickly snag up here. I lob it out and wait. But not for too long. Oh yeah, there's something going on. Here we go, here we go. Come on, take it. Oh no. This is so tricky. got most of the bait. I think it might be only a small one. It's just enough to keep me here. It's so cold, I just want to go back to the cabin. But I'm getting bites. Oh, I reckon the temperature has dropped close to 10 degrees since I got here. There's been a real shift in the weather around to the south. It was quite mild before. It's getting really cold now, and that wind has picked up. Not surprised I'm not seeing too many rises, but I've had a couple of bites. Don't know how much longer I'll hang in though. There's a bite. Sometimes they'll just play with your bait for a while. Don't be in too much of a hurry to strike. Wait for a stronger tug. Then pick up the slack out of your line and lift smoothly into the fish. Got one. After all that. Oh. I think this is the little guy that's been fiddling around with it all that time. Just a small rainbow. There he is. Oh, well, my first trout on a worm in 40 years. Oh, it's still good fun. Gee, played with it and played with it. Long shanked hook, it comes out pretty well. All right, mate, just settle down. There we go. Takes me back. I'm glad I got one. I might give it a few more minutes. Well, I certainly haven't set the world on fire. I've had a couple of bites and caught that one little rainbow. But it's quite interesting. You've got to be able to read the water and pick the spots where you can put your bait in. And it's just like any other form of fishing, whether you lure fish or you fly fish or you bait fish. It's all very much the same, and we really shouldn't make value judgments about the styles of fishing that other anglers choose to do. They all have their pleasures, there's no doubt about that. Apart from anything else, bait fishing for trout and other species teaches you so much about the basics that you can then later apply to lure and fly fishing if you choose to move on to those things. I'll give this a go again. It really takes me back to my childhood. Anyway, until next time, this is Starlo wishing you tight lines. Oh, I wonder if that was a little bump.